What is up, everyone? Welcome to our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, sdales. Man, it feels like we haven't seen you guys in a while. Appreciate you logging on here today as we talk more about cannabis, a few other things. Obviously, we talked briefly last week about the big conference in Chicago. News, obviously, was safe passing committee, and a lot of experts within the field said sideways trading will converse, and that's pretty much what we're seeing right now. So let's welcome in the gents, Anthony Verrill. Midweek, good to see you. How are things?
Good. It's a good week. Kicked off today with Tilray's earnings. We got the licenses going public in New York. It's good. Price action was mixed across the board. And then we got turmoil in Washington. So we got a lot to talk about.
Got a big ass pizza in your background just on that television. Man, does that look busy and delicious.
Day baseball. It's great having the wild card games on during the day starting at 3.
All right. Smart guy in the hood. Benjamin A. Smith. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you guys. So like the old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. This definitely, we definitely do so in MSO land.
Yeah.
Interesting to say the least. Let's get into that. All views of the Trade to Black podcast. The guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests as investment advice. And the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Okay, let's begin. Let the sideways trading begin, and that's probably being generous right now because we're in full swing season of sideways trading. We're trying to hang on. The rally for now seems over, but there is still some optimism in the space. When we look back at last week, gents, following the successful Senate Banking Committee markup vote, the prospects for bicameral Safer Banking Act legislation seem positive in both legislative branches of government. However, this industry, nothing comes easy. Big news, obviously, yesterday. Kevin McCarthy, I can't believe what I saw. First time ever. House Speaker is ousted. And now there's uncertainty and chaos. Ben, I'll begin with you. What was your reaction? Like, this seemed like it was a rumor. Did it have momentum? But appeared a small group of people had some pretty strong voter influence.
Yeah, this caught me by surprise. I think it caught most people by surprise because usually the House Speaker, I mean, this is the first time it's happened this early. And it actually makes sense in retrospect because if you recall, Kevin McCarthy needed about 15 votes to receive enough Republican support in January. There's a big turmoil about him getting in. And one of the things he had to agree to was loosening the restrictions of being able to be ousted. So it only took one or I don't know the specifics of it, but it took a lot less than it'd usually take to get that vote, to get that process going. So he sort of burned from the negotiations that he had to make in January. And now it's come to light. Democrats jumped all over it. They voted basically unanimously to oust him. It only took like 8 Republican votes was the difference. And now he's gone. And I think in terms of the cannabis industry, the big hang up here is, Kevin McCarthy wasn't known to be a cannabis advocate on a lot of issues, but for safe banking, he was. He voted twice in the affirmative for it. And now that kind of throws everything into turmoil because if you look at who is potentially replacing him, the front runners seem to be Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan right now, who are both basically have an F ranking from normal. And Jordan hasn't ever supported any sort of banking or any cannabis issue at all. At least Scalise, he supported the Research Act, Marijuana Research Act, but Jim Jordan didn't even vote for that. So if any of these guys become speaker, it kind of throws the whole process in doubt if it does pass the Senate.
I'm so sick of safe. This thing probably never gets passed. Throw it away. Give me rescheduling and let's never talk about this again.
I mean, I think that's kind of where you have to look. The U.S. government right now is in complete flux. And the real prize here is rescheduling with HHS and DEA.
Yeah.
SAFE was like icing on the cake. We knew that SAFE was a potential, but SAFE happened to get fast tracked as a result of the HHS recommendation. So, I mean, I mimic Ben's sentiment. Jim Jordan, I mean, I don't want to go out on a limb here, but Jim Jordan is kind of like Jeff Sessions light. He doesn't like cannabis. Granted, he's not going to repeal anything. I mean, I don't think he's going to go in and start to break things. But at the same time, like, I don't want him as speaker. Emmer would be best case scenario as far as speaker goes. But I mean, I was at Whole Foods yesterday when this news happened. I looked at my phone. I go, holy shit, they actually did it.
I know.
I was like, I can't believe that Gates actually did this. I mean, I think Gates is posturing to run for the seat of Florida governor. in 2026. He's always had aspirations for higher office. The only thing that also sucks here is Nancy Mace was involved in the 8 Republicans that voted out McCarthy. Nancy Mace has made a lot of sense as it relates to cannabis. Nancy Mace is pro-cannabis. It's a lot of uncertainty. I really think, though, after we were talking to Anthony from New Lake earlier, I don't even know if this is a cannabis bill anymore, safe banking. I think it's hinged on Section 10. Section 10, I mean, around the AML laws and around the banking repercussions for things like oil and gas, firearms, and alcohol. If they get what they want and that looks kosher to everybody, I think safe goes through regardless.
Yeah. Section 10 is a hot topic of conversation right now, Ben, from our conversations from earlier today, right?
Yeah.
It is a hot topic. That issue was apparently settled before, which is why people are pretty positive on safe banking progressing, because the two sides, had come to an agreement off the record. So that should have been settled. Then those issues started getting cropped up again. There's some doubt from Reed and others who are saying, "Oh, wait a minute," but apparently that had been settled, and we're all set to proceed, and now this happens. So I'm not sure what happens after that, but I tend to agree with Anthony's sentiment that if Section 10, I mean, safe banking is not just about cannabis. It's about oil, it's about firearms, it's about other issues that the Democrats want to repeal if they have the chance. So I think those are the bigger issues perhaps to Republicans, and if they get that, if the settlement on Section 10, then cannabis could probably, has a good chance of going through regardless.
So you brought up Jim Jordan's name, Anthony, the front runners right now. So there's Jim Jordan. Who else is there?
Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise has cancer right now. So, I mean, while his name is being floated around, it's been said that maybe he's not up to the task. Jim Jordan, to me, though, is a little too right leaning for the Dems to really come to the aisle and let that pass. This is a coin flip. I mean, anybody's guess is as good as anyone's right now. It's pure speculation on who's going to take this down. However, I think McHenry right now is the acting speaker.
Yeah.
He's not our friend.
No.
That guy is not somebody that we want making decisions.
But making it very clear, none of these people have any kind of like pull, influence, whatever, on what the DEA basically has a decision when it comes to rescheduling, right?
No, DEA is a federal agency with a Biden appointee at the helm.
Yeah.
DEA and HHS and Schedule 3 and everything else is completely insulated from the mess that's going on right now in the House.
Yeah.
And really, that's what matters, as Anthony said earlier. Yeah. I mean, the move was predicated from, below $5 is predicated on rescheduling to number 3. It wasn't really predicated on safe. That only came to the forefront after. I mean, it was always in the background. Then it looked more likely. And then we had it was in the Senate Banking Committee. We had the markup vote, which was good.
Yeah.
But really, the recent move was all predicated mostly by Schedule 3. So this was sort of icing on the cake. Of course, it hasn't gone anywhere for 10 years after passing the House 7 times. So I think, people have to keep their eye on the prize, which is Schedule 3, and the House has nothing to do with that. So that's the good news in all this.
Yeah. Chadwick, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Lucifer writes, okay, but usually when there is a vote held, they already kind of know they have an opportunity. Yeah, that's somewhat, I guess. But let's shift now to, well, big morning this morning. Obviously, Tilray, one of the biggest companies in the space, as we all know, reported their first quarterly earnings. Some of the notable numbers included net revenue, which increased 15% to $177 million in the first quarter, compared to $153 million in the prior year quarter, which beat consensus by $3 million. Net revenue increased. Cannabis net revenue increased 20% to $70 million in the first quarter, compared to $59 million prior year quarter. So I would say, Ben, it appears that Tilray, they're obviously continuing to build as the clear front runner in the Canadian market. Overall, was there any notable numbers that grabbed your attention pertaining to their earnings report?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I noted that cannabis net revenue increased 20% to $70 million in the first quarter year over year, which is nice. So growth seems to be on track. I always look at the top line, which was, the estimate was $174 million. They beat that by $3 million. So, it was a healthy quarter, I think. I have no complaints. Now, I understand Anthony actually attended the call, and he has some sort of noteworthy things under the hood. So I'm going to defer to Anthony about some of the more important things that are not financial.
Yeah,
I mean, Irwin had a lot to say on the conference call. He completely refuted the short report out there as it relates to any of the any of the allegations of like these dilutive events to pay off general business expenses, and what was going on at Double Diamond. So I mean, that was addressed. He also talked a lot about the beer business. I mean, he talked too much almost about the beer business for my liking. It was talking about the brew houses and extrapolating the food sales and talking about just what they were doing inside craft beer. I'm all for that, but I mean, I think I believe that they've bought those assets to build out a distribution network and also a consumption footprint and a manufacturing footprint for cannabis beverages moving forward. I mean, I want to see cannabis being the focal point of the earnings call. I don't want them talking about craft beer. Craft beer in this country is on the downtrend. Craft beer was hot 10 years ago. There's a reason why AB InBev unloaded all these assets and leaned out their portfolio. That being said, I mean, the only reason that I find them interesting to the Tilray story is because I see beverages being the future of cannabis. They bought Truss from Hexo. Truss has IP. Truss actually has pretty damn good beverages across the border. I do think, like what Brady had said, Canopy, Tilray, and the likes of the Canadian LPs, they're up there in Canada testing beverages, testing distribution, testing production. So when they do get the green light, they can come into the United States and they can have those channels to sell into. Granted, that also is a function of believing that interstate commerce is going to be somewhat wrapped into this thing. But Irwin also said that he would not come into the United States until legalization.
That's the thing that grabbed my attention.
That's a pretty strong word. That's a pretty strong word for him to say legalization. I don't think that's Schedule 3, and that's not even decrim. Legalization is a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
He also said that he also mentioned that he doesn't believe anything happens on the safe front or on the descheduling front for another 2 years, which I think that's probably the longest time horizon I've heard from anybody in the space. It was interesting to hear, but I mean, I'm not of that school of thought at all.
Yeah, it makes you think though. Why is he saying that? Like, based off of what information? 2 years. Like, I think that's long. A lot of conversation was about the craft brew business wise, and why would you like? How does that work? Like, cannot Canadian companies, obviously, yes, of course, they can enter into the US if there's rescheduling in play before it's federally legalized. Like, I wonder why that was mentioned, because we may never have federal legalization in America.
Correct.
No, they're not building their company for that, though. The problem is, for the beverage industry, you have to build a national supply chain and build at scale. As long as interstate commerce is in play, you can't do that with cannabis beverages. So they're waiting for that time to happen. Now, I'm surprised that, did he go into detail about why he didn't think even rescheduling would happen within 2 years?
It was a simple statement in the remarks. It wasn't an answer to any of the analyst questions. And he just kind of said it and moved forward. But my ears perked up when he mentioned it on the call. And then it was funny because after they got off the analyst questions, they had one user submitted question, and it was simply, why would you invest in Tilray? I was like, what? Do you guys not just screen these? Like, there's not even a point in having this on the call.
I mean, that's so broad. Really, you can't. How do you even answer? Right?
Correct.
Interesting.
So it was interesting. I mean, it wasn't as insightful as I would have liked. But I mean, I think they've got staying power in the space. I don't know if they're going to be the 800-pound gorilla that we all think they're going to be. But it's an interesting business that they're building.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just add here that I think that's one of the complications, and that's why personally, I'm not saying it's not a good company or investment worthy. I'm sure it is, and I'm sure it is to a lot of people. But that's part of the reason why I personally have stayed away traditionally from the Tilrays, from the Sundials. It's just the intermingling of their assets. You don't know whether to value them as a cannabis producer, a licensed producer, or a beverage maker. And it seems like they're talking more about beverages than cannabis. And I understand the strategy here. It just the timelines, you can't pin those down. It's just very complicated.
So I would be willing to say that, and I don't own Sundial. Sundial on paper to me makes sense.
Yeah.
Sundial has 100. I think their alcohol business in Canada does about 150 million quarterly. with some seasonality in there, but they're leveraged to the United States, and it's building up as the months go by. They are cannabis producing, flower touching assets. When you look at the parallel assets, when you look at these Skyman assets, when you look at what Sunstream actually has leverage to, it's plant touching cannabis businesses.
Yes.
And Sundial to me on paper looks far superior to Tilray.
So any idea why Tilray wouldn't do any idea why Tilray wouldn't do the same thing and have those plant touching assets, sort of like what Canopy does with Canopy USA and Sundial?
I'm not sure, because it's literally the flip of Tilray. They've got their alcohol assets north of the border, via the Alcanna acquisition, and then they've got their plant touching assets in the United States that they've just got ring fenced right now that they can't touch, basically. Or not that they can't touch, but they can't consolidate via the Sunstream vehicle. Tilray's the opposite. Tilray's got alcohol assets in the United States that you could argue might be decaying assets versus the stabilized assets that Sundial has in Canada.
And then they got Redecan and all those assets, they have Redecan, I believe, don't they?
Hexo. Yeah, Hexo bought Redecan, Hexo. And then they picked up both of them in that acquisition.
Yeah.
But the reason why they picked up I believe the reason why they picked up Hexo is for trust.
Yeah. Bold statement. You like Sundial more than Tilray?
Very much so.
Sundial crowd's going to like that. News earlier this week, Verano, they listed up on the SIBO. Lucifer, good question. Did anyone explain how the SIBO is a better position for Verano rather than going the TSX route? It does. I read it takes longer to transfer over the TSX to the U.S. market.
So Michael Auerbach was pushing that take on Twitter this morning with absolutely no facts backing it up.
Yeah.
I don't understand how one would be more advantageous than the other. They're both senior exchanges,
right?
And if you meet qualifications to get on an exchange, you meet the qualifications to get on the exchange. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. I saw the Twitter thread. He said the statement. He got called out on it. Someone asked him to state facts based on what he's basing the statement on. He didn't go into detail.
Yeah, correct. I think the CBO, I think the CBO is actually on par with the TSX. They would have advantages over the TSX Venture and CSE. Now, in terms of if you're talking about straight TSX, I think CBO is pretty much on par with that, with their listing standards, from my understanding.
Yeah, they were, I think, the biggest sponsor at the Benzinga conference. But I think, it's safe to say that whatever business the CSE was having, CBO just basically uplisted themselves, if you want to call it, and became direct competitors with the TSX. So you might see a lot of that happen, where more and more companies have goals to obviously list in the TSX, but don't be surprised if you see some that are listing on CBO as well. But I don't really think it's, a comparison to the CSE anymore, right?
And this might actually help them. This might actually help them if they want to uplist eventually, when that's possible. To be on the CBO actually might be advantageous, because again, they're like a parallel exchange in terms of they're considered tier 1 in Canada, and TSX Venture obviously and CSE are not. So this could have advantages. They could be looking down the road, and
they have access to both European and Australian investors outside of North America too. So I would think that's very appealing.
It's no throwing shade on the CSE, but I mean the CSE has been a necessary evil the entire time. I mean, I don't think you're going to see any cannabis companies on the CSE in the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, I think that's
I think they're all going to transition. But if the CSE wasn't there, we're not having this conversation.
100%.
Because none of these companies are public, and they'll be on they'd be at the mercy of the toxic OTC. And this movement would have never happened.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been they played their part.
They definitely played their part.
Yeah.
They got this industry off the ground. So kudos out to Richard Carlton and the gang. Let's shift now to how we do performance-wise today. I'm just looking at some notable names. Canopy growth.
Canopy for some reason shot up 10%. Air was down at least 15-16% intraday. It closed down 10%. Verano is down 7%. Trulieve down 7%. I've got like mixed, half and half, red and green. Canopy was the biggest mover of the day. And then Consortium, Aurora, Kronos, Sundial, all the MSOs for the most part were down on the day.
What was the volume for Canopy?
Canopy volume, 45 million. So not strong volume. But I don't understand how that moved. Well, why it moved 10% to the upside.
Could be a technical bounce. Who knows? It was kind of weird how MSOs had sort of hit that level and, basically diving right into support, and yet the LPs were all up. So I don't understand the dynamics behind that necessarily, but.
No, and I mean, I think we trade sideways for the month of November, and then we go into earnings season, which I know that we've kind of went back and forth. If it's flat, if it's showing growth, you've got Florida's adult use ballot initiative going to the Supreme Court hearing November 8th. You've got New York's licensing application phases that have just opened up today. You've still got adult use potentially in Ohio. I mean, there's a lot of fundamental catalysts for these companies coming up outside of the regulatory framework. And everybody that we spoke to in Chicago, whether it was Verano, State House, Cresco, all the big boys were like, we don't really care. We're marching forward whether this happens or not. Yeah. It's awesome from an investment perspective, and it's great for the balance sheet to drop 280E. But whether it happens now or whether it happens in 2 years, we're still moving forward and we're still growing.
Yeah, but at the same point, they know it's coming, which is why I think they're saying obviously the right things. As we've said at previous podcasts, cautiously optimistic. However, a lot of positive sentiment. And, this earnings season, I would anticipate, Ben, just if it's the same old, it's actually a win for the industry and it just kind of moves forward. But if you can obviously buy yourself some time. And when's the next earnings after October, November? Is it February, March?
Earnings start to roll November 8th.
Yeah.
And then that would put the next earnings, somewhere in the middle of Q1.
Yeah.
And most our fiscals are aligned with calendar. So I think the year end is coming at the end, right? So the reporting date is a little bit beyond being annual, but it should be sometime in.
And I mean, there's bright spots. I mean, there's a lot of bright spots in the sector right now. Michigan's stabilizing. Maryland is cruising. Those are going to come up on the earnings reports. Illinois actually sold, I think, the most cannabis it has in the past year, last month, from a retail perspective. So, I mean, there are bright spots in the fundamentals of these businesses.
A lot of companies, from what I heard last week, are focusing on growth states. Bo Whitney from Whitney Economics, they're basically, they collect data, global trends on the global scale. But growth states, like you said, Maryland, New York, Ohio, Michigan, going to get a lot of attention for a lot of these companies.
There's a lot of stuff moving and shaking right now in these companies' favor.
People have to realize, though, you can't, macro is looking a little heavy right now. So who knows what happens with that? So you gotta be careful, because nothing is going to escape macro. If we were to, to fall a little bit, there's, very, very few sectors will escape that. So if you're looking to purchase, this is a good time. We retraced about 50% from the levels. We dove into the bottom end of key support around 713 MSOs closed at. So, this is a 50% retracement from the recent rally. I mean, this is not, if you're looking to get in, if you held your cash and all that, and you're looking to dive in for the first time, with Schedule 3 rescheduling still on the table, then this, might be a good time to start looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at air down 16% intraday, and I was thinking to myself, let's get back under $1. I want to round trip I would love to round trip the trade.
Are you still in?
No, I'm out. I got out in the 270 range.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Beautiful trade.
I would love to round trip that trade.
This is not investment advice, by the way, just information.
Oh, no. I'm not saying buy it. I'm not saying that's a price target of mine. I'm just saying if it goes back under $1, I'm going to buy it again.
Yeah.
The same size that I bought last time.
Growth states, Renato writes, how is Missouri? We don't get that question asked very much. I don't really know much.
So I actually know a decent amount about Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri and Oklahoma are two gangbuster states. However, none of the MSOs really wanted to be there because it was unlimited licenses from the beginning. I think you're going to see consolidation in states like that, and then you'll see assets be cherry picked out of there moving forward. But Missouri is a good state. It's just fucking saturated. They literally gave anybody a license from the beginning.
Timeline wise, El Guapo. Thanks for all the comments, by the way, El Guapo. Maybe we should hire as a producer. 45 days to report after Q1, 2, and 3. 90 days to report after Q4 on the NASDAQ. Thank you, sir. All right.
So we're looking at Q4 reports sometime in March, probably
Probably
mid to
late
late March.
February. Yeah, from late Feb to mid to late March. Yeah, they'll roll out.
Yep. And I believe even this year we had a couple. Even Cureleaf delayed it for a week or two because of some reason. So that's always possible. But
they did. Boris actually, and speaking of Cureleaf, Boris actually announced today that they had the AGM, and they passed everything. So the TSX uplisting has been internally greenlit for them.
For all of our viewers out there as well, a week from tomorrow, Thursday, October 12th, all three of us going to be downtown at Moxie's, corner of University and Wellington. Terrason's having an investor day at the TSX on the Friday, and they're having a cocktail party on the Thursday night at Moxie's from 6 to 9. We're setting up our podcast studio, so we'll be down there talking with the Terrason crowd. So if you're in the neighborhood, swing by. We'd love to meet you and have a drink with you and talk cannabis. But that should be fun. I really like what Terrason's doing.
It'll be nice to see It'd be nice to see Jason again. I didn't get to see him in Chicago, as I was just in one day and out the next. And yeah, it'll be a great investor day. I mean, I'm a shareholder at Terracent. I'm very interested to see what's going on and get in front of the guys and really get a touch base on what's in store for the future of Terracent.
Yeah, it was nice to meet up with David Klein as well from Canopy last week. I thought he was a nice guy.
David was awesome. Randomly we walked up. I know you approached him first. Randomly walked up to him in the line, and he gave us the time of day. I mean, we got a good talk with him for about 10 minutes. A lot of people really do neglect the fact that they do own two major brands in the U.S., being Wana and Jetty. Wana does numbers. They've got their lunch eaten by Wild in the last couple of years, especially out on the West Coast. But I mean, Wana is a formidable player in the edible space, and Jetty is a formidable player in the extract space. That paired with Acreage, and maybe they go shopping for a couple other assets moving forward, they will be a player in the United States versus what everybody says on Twitter versus what most people think. Canopy will come into the U.S.
Yes.
And I think 100%. They'll come into the U.S. way quicker than Tilray.
Yeah.
They want to consolidate those assets into their P&L and bring everything up into the mothership.
That's what I got too. I moderated a panel with them, Sundial and Village Farms, about Canadian companies heading to the U.S. But needless to say, worst kept secret, obviously, in the space is Canopy is going to be full-fledged, focused on the American market when that opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like the Guap's joking that CGC is going to be profitable tomorrow. That's I don't see that. I don't see that happening anytime soon. And Jordan, I will continue to call Sundial, not SNDL. I still call the Dolphin Stadium Joe Robbie Stadium, and I think that name changed about 20 years ago. So,
Jordan, you like SNDL better, buddy?
SNDL,
smaller brand.
SNDL just doesn't do it for me. Like, it's like a pet peeve of mine. I hate when people refer to companies by their stock tickers.
Yeah.
And like, I'm never going to call it SNDL.
Yeah. We met Zach George too. Good guy, needless to say. So yeah. Still scheduling, obviously, an interview. We're going to have some stuff around their earnings report in November as well. So that'll be good. Trying to get him on here in the short term, because I know that a lot of our audience has been eagerly wanting to listen to an interview. We're trying. They're busy, but we'll keep trying, to say the least. Any other notable trends that you guys want to cover off before we log off here?
Just praying for some sort of favorable speaker that gets into the house, just so the uncertainty could be put to bed. I mean, like I said, I want to see basically anybody other than Jim Jordan.
Yeah.
That's up there, because Jim Jordan's not going to play nice with the Dems. It's going to create more uncertainty, and we need less.
Skydome is still the Skydome. I'm with you, Anthony.
It's true.
God, that's going way back. Wonder how these Jays are doing. Win or die.
And I get your point, Jordan. I mean, it does. People do, I guess, think of Sundial as Sundial, but when you look at Sundial on paper, it's a kick-ass company.
El Guap's on a roll. Check this one out. The TDR host, formerly known as Anthony, is now named ANTV.
Looks like you got a ticker.
I got a ticker. Yeah, I'm gonna change my Twitter. I'll change my Twitter handle. I'm gonna change my Twitter handle to that. But yes, I do agree with you. The 260 mil plus that they're pulling in revenue. I mean, Zach's doing a great job. We've met in person a couple times. We've spoken a couple times. I like Zach. I thoroughly like Zach as a CEO, and trust what he's doing in the business. He's treating it more like a private equity play. And I think what they did with Sunstream, raised the money at the right time. They're doing all the right things.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention too, it was amazing to see the MariMed team, but kudos to Benzenga. I don't know what the actual award was, but it's almost like a lifetime achievement award. They awarded the company and the late Bob Fireman, and that room was packed. And that guy obviously was one of the original OGs in this industry. Spoke to his wife. I would have loved to have sat down and got to know him more because, he always had time for us, but this is a man that rolled with like the Rat Pack, like the Frank Sinatras of the world, like really good friends. Like there are some really, really interesting stories and people that you meet in the space, right?
Yeah. I mean, I met Bob back in 2017, probably at MJ Biz. And that man, every single time I saw him at a conference, would stop, shake my hand, say hello, have a conversation, and then be on his way.
I know.
He was very personable. He's a super likable guy. Very knowledgeable in the space. And I mean, yeah, it was a shame that he was taken a little too soon. But yeah, he was a great dude.
Yeah. Tim Seymour stopped by as well. He mentioned kind of like what we talked about. Nice to see that stocks didn't retract or even perform all that much last week after a past committee, Ben. But as you said, just things are sideways right now, and it looks like that's going to be probably the case for the foreseeable future. Which
it's retail money. Again, I'm just going to keep hammering it every time this topic comes up. Retail money, retail trade was made. No institutional money has come in yet, and it won't come in until a couple more dominoes happen. So treat it as such, right? So if you have a long-term view, take advantage of this, right? If you have more of a short-term view, and that's fine. If you're playing as a trade, then that's okay. Then treat it as such. Just don't expect things to 300x or 3 or 4x.
I know.
No,
as long as retail's in here, and we got a good double. So now things have retraced about 50%. It's a big Fibonacci level right there. If you missed it and you're bullish for the long term, and you still think Schedule 3 is a go, and you're not too scared of macro right now because the economy is definitely probably a little bit in flux, then now is a good time to maybe start diving in.
Also, if you're not scared of macro right now, you got fucking brass balls.
Macro is tough.
I mean, macro right now is shaky at best.
Yeah.
And especially when you're looking at the potential of a government shutdown, which is why Gates went after McCarthy. The macro here is
it's bad.
It's cause for concern.
Yeah, quick anecdote for the viewers. Zero Hedge reported today that credit card spending sequentially, like month over month, was down 11.6% in September. So, I mean, there's high variancy with this. They do fluctuate, but I mean, that's huge.
And you know what's good about that? You can't use credit cards in a cannabis dispensary, so that's not an ominous take on the earnings coming up.
No, not on cannabis earnings, but it's just macro. It just shows how macro, like people are retrenching, interest rates are high, variable rates are like 7%. It's tough, right? And there's indication from the Fed that interest rates aren't going to come down soon. It could be higher for longer. Some people are even predicting maybe it gets up to even 10%. We have like a sort of a stagflation scenario. So I don't mean to be the wet blanket. I'm just saying have the mentality that we're going through a tough time with macro. It's going to affect all industries. And treat your investments as such, and maybe think about being more defensive until things start shaking out the right way.
Lucifer writes, one of the provinces in Canada, Manitoba, the election results, one Liberal vote, and then they resigned. There's only been one other time there has been 0 Liberals in Manitoba since 1897. That gives you a real indication of where the world is right now and the everyday voters as to where their mindset is in these elections.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on up in Canada. They're regulating podcasts now. They're blocking news from social media. It's not good. It's not good for the flow of information. I mean, Elon came out and basically said that Justin Trudeau is trying to crush free speech.
Pretty much
this week. And I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but I mean, my view on cannabis is this is going to be a consumer staple moving forward. I mean, the short term stuff doesn't. I mean, obviously it means much. It sucks seeing your account just peak to trough and go sideways. But the fact of the matter is I think cannabis is going to be a CPG, just like alcohol moving forward here for the continued future. And that's really what I base my investment thesis on.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying last week when it was sell the news after the amendment passed, or not amendment, but after the bill passed markup, it was like, stop looking at the daily price action. It shouldn't be why you're here, unless you're a swing trader, which I'm not.
There are times to be defensive and times to be offensive. The time to be offensive is obviously when the Schedule 3 news came out, August 30th. Then that's when you just want to buy. The first limit up, you just buy. You just market buy in, and then you hold it because it was such a great catalyst. When the catalyst sort of removed, and now technically we're looking weaker, I think you should shift to a more defensive mentality in terms of initiating position. So it's like sort of what Dan the Chartman says. Sometimes there's a way to be offensive. Look at the stock market like a war. Right. And there are some levels where it's like trench warfare on both sides, bears and bulls. And I like the way you kind of use it. And that's sort of the, similar way that I view it. And right now, the bulls are kind of running away right now and the bears have the upper hand. So, in these type of conditions, be defensive. You don't need to rush it. Schedule 3 is not coming out tomorrow. It's probably not coming out this week. There's still at least a 60-day comment period, even if there's an initial ruling on it, which probably won't be the ruling, but they'll just say that they're progressing, or they'll make an announcement that here comes the comment period, etc. So you don't have to rush into it. It's be defensive when the market is telling you to be defensive.
Okay, Jen.
I think we see that. I think we see Schedule 3 hit somewhere between March and June of
next year for sure.
March and June.
Yeah. The attention span of people in general. I mean, 6 months really is the window. I mean, I think they're going to want to put that in and then claim a political win and use it on the campaign trail. Something around there.
Well, let's hope your future's bright. You got all these people on the boots on the ground in Miami, and you found out tonight the Miami Marlins, 75% of their team has the flu going into Game 2.
Yeah. I don't want to bet against the fish, but I will be tonight. I would prefer I prefer them to win. I mean, honestly, I don't watch baseball. I grew up loving baseball and I love playoff baseball. And the fact that they got shellacked last night and then hearing that a lot of the team's sick tonight, it's a little bit disparaging. But at least the Dolphins will probably put 70 on the Giants again when they come to town on Sunday. So it'll be a nice ass whooping.
I think the Phillies might put 70 on them tonight. Sounds like.
I'm fine with that because I'm heavy on the spread. So I need the Phillies to win by 2.
I'd be curious what the atmosphere is like at a Phillies game versus an Eagles game. Like they're
nuts.
The same fans.
No, they're fucking crazy.
The Philly fans are?
I've actually been. I've been to a Marlins Phillies game in Philadelphia.
So it's the same old, regardless of what team.
Same shit as the Eagles. Crazy fucking fans. And if you're wearing the opponent's jersey, it's just straight heckling. I was contemplating going. I was talking to a couple of my buddies. We were actually going to go fly up to Philly for the game tonight. And just said, screw it.
I'll never forget the mid-90s Hall of Famer, diehard Cowboys fans. Sorry, everybody, but I love the 90s Cowboys. Tough to cheer for him now, but Michael Irvin had that spinal injury that ended his career, and they had to take his face mask off. And as he's being pulled out in the stretcher before he goes underneath the concourse, fans throwing garbage at him on his face. Like, they are ruthless.
It's tough out there.
Yeah.
It's real tough out there.
How'd you guys do last Sunday? I know that you had a heartbreaker, buddy, when Patrick Mahomes slid at the
Mahomes screwed me, but I cleaned up otherwise. I did well on Saturday in college, and then I had a couple of parlays hit on Sunday. But yeah, Mahomes really screwed me from having a big
I was surprised that when they were down 17-0, everything was going against the Jets in the first quarter. I'm surprised that they came back from that. I mean, Wilson definitely showed that that he's perhaps turning the corner with some of his timing throws and all that. I was actually impressed for the first time, semi-impressed with the way Wilson performed. Like, he actually looks like he's potentially on the path to turning things around.
Yeah.
That being said, when Mahomes slid and, when they got that first down to 12 and you knew that there was only like 3 or 4 more plays, you're like, oh no, there's no way that they're going to get first down on the 2 or whatever. And that's kind of exactly what happened. So, they're at midfield with 7:29 left, and they couldn't punch it in or make a decision from there. So kind of disappointing.
You brought up college football, Anthony. I remember when Justin Fields went to the pros, they weren't too worried because CJ Stroud came marched along. But man, oh man,
dude,
he looks incredible already.
CJ Stroud is impressive, and Justin Fields looks like a schmuck.
Well, there's a lot of turmoil going on.
Actually, Anthony Richardson
I was
He looks impressive.
I was completely fucking wrong, Ben. You were right. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. He actually looks really, really good.
And that's what I'm saying. It's not like a gotcha, like, I'm right. I don't care about that. But have you actually seen him play? This guy,
I have him on my, so you'll get a crack at it. I have him on my fantasy teams.
Dude, this guy's throwing. He could throw. He can actually do progressions. He's raw. His footwork sucks, and he's low on accurate, but he's got such a fluid motion. This guy's going to be
Jonathan
a star,
Taylor. Dude. He gets Jonathan Taylor back this week.
Gents, we got a little bit of a surprise for us. Ready?
Oh, is that Jason?
Look who's here. Mr. Wild.
How's it going? How's
everybody
doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Market's not the most fun, but
missed you in Chicago last week.
Yes. I was in and out. I had to be back here for something in Miami Thursday night. So
fun.
Sorry I missed you. I think I saw Shad for like 3 seconds.
Yeah, it was like I had to head to the airport, I think an hour after you. But yeah, it was good panel that you had when you were a keynote speaker. But you were mentioning about how the TSX has been probably it's kind of beat all expectations, which I thought was interesting. But you want to maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it hasn't beat expectations, obviously. Our expectations on the stock price over time have not been exceeded. Not that we thought that was going to, like we've always said, we didn't think it would be a magic bullet for that. But in terms of the ways that we think that we can measure it is volume. I mean, obviously, volume is up a lot now versus July 4th when we listed. A lot of that is because of the Schedule 3 news, I think.
Yep.
So, but if you looked at the data, we had crunched the data, or one of the banks I think did for us, and showed us that the volume, was up 140% from the time prior to our listing to post the TSX, while I believe all of the other MSOs, their volume was down 18%, and the S&P volume was down 18%. And they also, I'd have to go dig up the data, but they also showed that the bid-ask spread narrowed considerably, which is, another good aspect if we're trying to attract institutional investors. But I think the main thing that I talked about in terms of exceeding expectations was, as you guys know, like whenever anybody would ask us, maybe the second question, if not the first question, when we told them about the TSX, was they would ask us about custody, U.S. institutional custody. And it seems, knock on wood, it seems like that's been fixed. I haven't heard that that's a problem with anybody. And we did, back in, early mid-July, we did, hear that Morgan Stanley took it off their blocked list pursuant to their MRB policy, marijuana-related business policy. And obviously, Pershing, which is Bank of New York. They were the ones that must have been 2 years ago now that, really killed the space because they stopped allowing their accounts to trade in and custody these names. And they took us off the block list. I mean, that's a big part of why the guys over at the MSOS ETF were able to start, buying our stock direct. I think it has something to do with their docs say something about, New York, NASDAQ or the TSX, but that's been a huge positive for us too. We didn't know whether they'd be able to buy us without swaps.
So did the TSX uplisting eliminate MSOS having to buy your stock via swaps?
Correct.
They can actually buy it direct. Okay, that's good to know, because that's a huge question that comes up on Twitter.
Oh, really?
All the time. So the swaps were eliminated. They're buying direct right now.
Yep, they're buying direct. They've been buying direct since July.
Okay.
And I got to give them credit. I mean, they went right after the news was out and immediately got the wheels rolling for that. And I know there's been a couple other ETFs as well that have bought directly as well. And as you guys know, swaps are expensive, and they require they have different capital requirements than buying stock straight up. So we're thrilled about that. And that's when I say upside, I mean, trust me, I was hoping or think that our stock should be doing a lot better and be higher than where we are right now over time. So, I'm not saying it's exceeded expectations from that perspective, but the plumbing of it exceeded expectations. And now, we've gotten a lot of inbound, institutional phone calls and emails and things like that. And this now makes it so that, once we, all we've got to do is convince the portfolio manager, the analyst and the portfolio manager, and then, and it's still their own compliance needs to sign off on it. But now we don't have this roadblock where we get that other part, and then they can't buy it because their trading platform or their it's funny. My wife just walked by in her towel.
Jason, speaking of plumbing, I know when soon after you listed after the TSX, you indicated that BNY Mellon trading was allowed there, and I believe there might have been another platform in there as well. Have you had any other indications that more U.S. firms have opened up, or not quite yet?
I mean, to tell you the truth, it's like I hate saying to tell you the truth because it sounds like I'm not. But I was trying to think of some other filler word there. The fact is, we stopped looking. Like, we heard those first few days, there were several. I think there were like 4 or 5 of them, and then we sort of stopped keeping track. And I have not heard of any firm. Like, I haven't heard from any potential investors that any firm is blocking it. So, I mean, we're sort of assuming that it's been solved until somebody comes to me and complains that they weren't able to buy it on their platform. I feel like it's been, almost completely solved. But I don't have the proof in terms of, knowing that each firm specifically cleared it.
Yeah. What was your take last week in Chicago? Like, it was a lot more positive, as I said before, compared to the spring. But did you find the group of investors that were there? Was there more? Was there qualified investors? Like, what was, I know you didn't have a lot of time that you were there, but, you keynote speaked. I think you were kind of featured as, you're looked at right now as the darling of the space, considering what you've done with the TSX, but more or less, like, what was your, I guess, reaction to what you experienced and just the overall sentiment for the industry moving forward?
If I didn't say that, if anybody considers us the darling, it's like, I think it's more so because of the fundamentals that we've driven over the last 4 quarters with the continued improvements in gross margins and cash flow and the repayment of the debt and the canopy.
Not to mention
Maryland
insider buying by you.
Yeah. So I just felt like I would be remiss if I didn't point that out and have people, help perpetuate. Maybe it was just because of the TSX. The TSX, obviously, it's been great. There's been much more volume, and we think, like I said, we're thrilled about it. In terms of the environment that was out there at the conference, I was out there for too short of a period of time. At Shad, as you know, I also had some medical issue for the prior few weeks. I was trying to take it easy and not push myself too hard. I would say it was almost exclusively industry people that I mostly ran into. Not much on a little bit on the investor side. There were a few investors that I saw there. We made use of the time out there. The first day, the day before I did the keynote, we drove out to Milwaukee, and there were 2 larger institutional investors that we met with out there, and we thought that those meetings were awesome. I mean, we're planning on getting out on the road and doing some more substantial road shows. We're looking at possibly going to Europe. We're going to do some meetings in Canada when we're up there next week. So, like,
you ever thought about Dubai?
Yes. Yeah. Ziad was texting me about Dubai like 2 days ago. So yeah, definitely. The thing I would say overall is, and this wasn't your question, but like, whenever we meet, say we went and met the guys in Milwaukee, like, they are, I would say almost whenever we meet with these different firms and give them, tell them the story and the update and what's been going on, 90+% of them are more bullish at the end of the meeting than they were going into the meeting.
That's great.
But it's still a matter of, everybody's getting killed. I mean, you guys were talking about the macro stuff, and there's not too many institutional investors that have been immune. So everybody's sort of everybody's playing scared, and nobody has any. Nobody has too much FOMO.
Yeah, good point. I heard you were close from. You had some invitations to go to the Packers game last Thursday night.
The Packers game? No.
Yeah, Thursday night. I thought you were going to the Packers game. They played Detroit. You were in. When did you come to Chicago? Was it Wednesday or Thursday?
I had to be back. The reason I had to run there was because we had new parent night at my daughter's school here in Miami. So
all right,
and you lose an hour going back.
Next week's going to be fun though. You have your investor day at the TSX on Friday, October the 13th, from 9 until 1. Having a big little party. Moxie's downtown. Sorry, but we've already asked people that are following this if you want to swing by and say hi if they're in Toronto to swing by. So hopefully they don't barge down the door too much. But that's at Moxie's. But it sounds like that'll be a good little event and smart decision, obviously, to create this investor day.
Yeah, we're really thank you. We're really psyched. I look forward to seeing you guys out there. The last time I saw you in Toronto, I guess, was July 4th.
Yeah.
But we're psyched, and we're psyched for people to meet. More than just me, Keith, and Ziad, and see the people that are doing a ton of the work and who have been doing a great job for the last 4 quarters. So
that's awesome. I like these little surprise stop-ins, but let's do this anytime. But anyway, stay cool in Miami. I'm sure it's pretty hot down there right now, but look forward to seeing you next week. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Jason.
That was great. All right, gents.
Beauty of live showbiz.
It's great. Who can we reach out to? Well, I've got a few ideas that we can get. All right, gents. I think that pretty much wraps it up. We're about 52 minutes in. I appreciate everybody for logging on. But yeah, we'll make sure that when's our next live stream? I'm gonna make an announcement too. Next week, after markets, we have a partnership with the Benzinga team. So on our YouTube channel, along with Benzinga's YouTube channel, we're gonna have an official Trade to Black on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays every single week after market, beginning probably around 4:05, 4:10, and that'll be streamed live on, like I said, our channel and Benzinga's channel. It's going to be probably the biggest financial show in cannabis, psychedelics, crypto combined in the entire industry. So make sure that you put that into your calendars every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 4:10 every single day, or I should say 3 days a week.
Upgraded graphics, upgraded production. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that is exciting. We're moving on up, boys.
Prestige worldwide.
Prestige. Actually, I like that.
You know what that's from?
Is that the new name of the show?
Prestige Step Brothers.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. I
was looking for rich guys in blue suits at Benzinga. Oh, by the way, before I go, was one last thing I wanted to bring up. I ran into your good friend Sammy from C21 Investments, Ben, but he really enlightened me on ETFs and just looking at the daily volume. Like if a lot of retail investors think, let's say, for example, GTI is going to climb up to 25 and MSOs is going to be 9, they need to understand the industry a lot more, that this industry, when it comes to moving, starts and ends with MSOs. And, he was showing me some examples of the daily volume, and it's, they've got 2/3 of the trading volume right now, but I couldn't help but agree with everything he was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Sammy, great guy. Hope to see you at next conference. But yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have an individual component go up 3-4x from MSOs. I mean, they're a holder of close to probably about 10% of the swaps. It's going to be tethered, to the ETF. I mean, there's no other way around it unless they have some specific news where they're bought out or something extraordinary happens. You're pretty much going to get the same move within a band over time. And I think that's what's happening. And as we've seen with, Dan Aarons, some of the cash he's getting back to about par. So there's less money coming into the ETF, and maybe that's playing a part in some of the decline lately. But expect the component stocks to be relatively tethered to MSOs. Could be variance on one individual day or two, but overall, it's going to be about the same. One's not going to go up way more than the other.
All right. Things to do. Let's get a hold of Sammy right away and get him on. Let's get he was wealth of knowledge, but really like him. But anyways, I'll let you guys go. I'm going to go watch the rest of this Jays Twins game. And then we got the Marlins Phillies tonight with 75% of that Marlin crew with us.
See what happens.
I'm going to take a look into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Holy guys. Shit. Texas ran up the score on Tampa.
What's the score?
7-1 Texas.
Man, Tampa's going to be beat out again.
Texas were the underdog. Good. Fuck Tampa. Texas were the underdog in the series.
All right.
We don't like Tampa and South
You have
Florida.
the under on that, or you want Tampa Bay to win?
I didn't touch it. Not after
One
yesterday.
last thing. Somebody wrote, actually, Jamie, do you guys have any intel on the Canadian cannabis industry review that's supposed to be being done? It's the timing expectation for that review to be completed by April. I don't really know much about that.
I have zero idea what Jamie or Jaime or Jamie, forgive me if I pronounce that wrong, but I have no idea what they're referring to.
Canadian cannabis industry review. Jamie, leave a comment below and we'll maybe elaborate a little bit more and we'll get back to you in a comment with any feedback. Okay. All right, guys, I'll let you run. Everybody, thanks for chiming in again. Next week, we launch with Ben Zenga, Trade to Black, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Mark it in your calendar, live stream at 4:10 every single day. Ben, Anthony, enjoy the ball game. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Talk to you.
Thanks, guys.
See you tomorrow.
Talk later.